My family took my $3,000 a month, used it to fund a luxury vacation without inviting me, so I cut them off and blocked them all forever. What's good, Reddit? Sorry for the wall of text, but this tea is scalding hot, and I need to know if I'm tripping or not. Let me put you in the context. My family's always been kind of messed up, like we've got the whole golden child, family ATM dynamic going hard. My brother, a 24-year-old male, is literally the sun that everyone orbits around. Mom and Dad basically worship the ground he walks on and have since we were kids. Everything he does is amazing. Every achievement gets celebrated like he cured cancer, and he can never do any wrong. Meanwhile, I'm a 26-year-old male and have always been the responsible one, which is code for, we only pay attention to you when we need something. I've been bankrolling my entire family for years now. We're talking $3,000 a month that I just transfer to them without questions. It started when my dad had some health problems a few years back, but then just never stopped. I also cover random emergencies, my brother's car payment for his fancy-ass car that he totally doesn't need, and my sister's college tuition. She still lives with my parents rent-free, even though she's 22, says she's saving money, but somehow always has cash for her weekend trips with friends. The worst part is, even my best friend Jake has been telling me for years that I'm letting them walk all over me. Dude, you're not their son, you're their cash cow, he said last month when I mentioned covering yet another emergency. You've got to set some boundaries, or they'll keep bleeding you dry. I brushed him off at the time, told him he didn't get it. Anyway, the last time I saw them all was at this family dinner about 2 weeks before everything started. My brother was going on and on about how he deserved a break from his part-time job that barely covers his energy drinks and video games. I was sitting there thinking, must be nice, since I work 60-hour weeks to support myself and them. When I mentioned maybe taking some time off myself, my mom literally changed the subject like I hadn't even spoken. Classic. Then my brother started talking about his upcoming birthday and how it was going to be epic, and everyone was smiling all secretive like. I asked what the plans were, and they all got super weird. My dad mumbled something about just a small thing, and my mom jumped in, talking about dessert or whatever. I honestly couldn't care less. Fast forward to yesterday, I'm just scrolling through Instagram, not really paying attention, when I saw a post from my brother. It's a picture of my entire family at some bougie beach resort. Mom, dad, brother, sister, even my cousins, all smiling with their stupid little umbrella drinks and matching sunglasses. The caption, best family birthday vacation ever, living my best life with the fam. I legit thought I was hallucinating. What family vacation? Nobody told me anything about a trip. No invite, no heads up, not even a sorry you couldn't make it text. I kept scrolling through more of his posts, and it got worse. They're staying at this resort that probably costs more per night than my weekly grocery budget. They're eating at restaurants where an appetizer costs $30. They're on yacht tours, jet skiing, getting massages on the beach, the works. And I'm sitting in my crappy apartment with furniture from 5 years ago thinking, how the hell are they affording all this? Then it clicked. They're definitely using my money. The $3,000 I send every month. The emergency fund I've been filling for years. My hard-earned cash funding their luxury vacation that I wasn't even invited to. I called my mom right away. When she picked up, I could literally hear waves and people laughing in the background. Hey, sweetie, she answered, all casual, like she wasn't standing on a beach I was paying for. When I asked where they were, she got all weird and said they were on a little trip for my brother's birthday. When I asked why I wasn't invited, she tried to gaslight me, saying they thought I knew about it and was too busy with work to come. I wasn't buying it, so I called my dad next. Unlike Mom, he didn't bother lying. He barked into the phone, "What do you want? Why do you keep calling?" I was honestly shocked by how annoyed he was. I mean, they didn't invite me and didn't even want to hear my voice. He straight up told me, "We didn't want you there." I was shook. What? Listen, it's your brother's birthday celebration. He deserves all the attention. You always bring the energy down with your whatever mood you're always in, and we know how jealous you get of him. We didn't want you ruining his special time. I couldn't even speak for a second. I send you $3,000 every month, I finally said. I paid for Dad's surgery last year. I covered Sister's tuition, and you're using my money to fund a vacation I wasn't invited to? It's not your money once you give it to us, he said coldly. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. I hung up and just sat in my living room for like 2 hours, staring at nothing. His words kept playing on repeat in my head. We didn't want you there. Not, we forgot to invite you, or there was a miscommunication. They straight up didn't want me there on a vacation my money was paying for. I couldn't wrap my head around the level of disrespect. Like, who does that? Who takes someone's money and then deliberately excludes them from the thing they're funding? That night, as I was fuming, I opened my banking app and went nuclear. First, I canceled the recurring $3,000 transfer I'd been sending them monthly. That felt weirdly scary. I'd been doing it for so long that it felt like I was breaking some kind of law by stopping. Then I checked our joint account. You know, the emergency fund I'd been dumping money into for years, supposedly for medical emergencies and unexpected bills. Guess how much was in it? $212. They'd withdrawn over $20,000 in the past 3 weeks. $20,000, my money, for a vacation I wasn't welcome on. I transferred that pathetic little remaining balance to my personal account and closed the joint account completely. Then I methodically went through all my automatic payments and canceled every single thing I was covering for them. My brother's car insurance, my sister's phone bill, the extra medical coverage for my parents. One by one, I cut every financial tie. It took me almost 2 hours to untangle everything. I had no idea how many things I was paying for until I actually sat down and looked. Netflix, Amazon Prime, phone bills, insurance policies, credit card minimums. The list just kept going. When I was done, I just sat there feeling weird, like relieved but also kind of sad, like I was mourning something. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I blocked them all. Mom, dad, brother, sister, every single one. I blocked their numbers, their social media, their emails, everything. Complete digital separation. When I told Jake what I'd done, he actually cheered. Like out loud cheered. Finally, man. You should have done this years ago. They've been using you like a freaking ATM. Now you can actually live your own life. I tried to act all nonchalant, but his words hit me. I'd been living for them for so long I barely remembered what living for myself even looked like. I went to sleep feeling lighter than I had in years. But the peace didn't last long. The next morning, my phone was already blowing up with messages and calls from extended family and family friends. Word travels fast when the money well suddenly dries up. From my aunt, your mother called me crying her eyes out. What's going on? She says you've abandoned the family without warning. From my cousin, dude, what the hell? Your mom says you cut them all off. What happened? And my personal favorite, from an unknown number that had to be my brother, you're dead to this family. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By throwing a tantrum because you weren't invited to one trip? Grow up, you selfish prick. I read that last one a few times and actually laughed out loud. Everything they've done for me? Are you kidding? It was so obvious what was happening. They weren't upset because they hurt me. They weren't calling because they felt bad about excluding me from a family event. They were panicking because their cash flow suddenly dried up. For years, I'd been living in a mediocre apartment, driving an old car, skipping vacations, and basically living well below my means so I could support them. And they couldn't even be bothered to invite me to a family trip. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about the vacation. This was about years of being taken for granted, years of being treated like a resource instead of a person, years of sacrificing so they could live comfortably while I scraped by. The vacation was just the thing that finally made me see it clearly. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I changed my voicemail message to say I was taking some time for myself and wouldn't be checking messages for a while. Then I silenced my phone and tried to enjoy a rare weekend where I wasn't solving someone else's problems. On impulse, I downloaded a dating app, something I'd never had the time or extra cash for before. Within an hour, I had a match with this cute girl who wanted to meet for drinks that weekend. It hit me that I could actually do that now. I could spend my money on myself, my time on my own life, without canceling plans because someone needed an emergency cash transfer. Monday morning, the texts and calls were still coming in. My mom had apparently moved on from crying to my aunt, and was now telling people I was having some kind of episode and needed support. My dad was telling family friends that I'd always been difficult, and this was just another example of my selfishness. It was like I was seeing them clearly for the first time. The manipulation, the guilt-tripping, The way they twisted everything to make themselves the victims. After 2 days, someone was knocking on my door, the kind where you think someone's trying to break your door down. I checked the peephole, and sure enough, there was my sister, looking like she was ready to breathe fire. I considered just not answering, I really did. But knowing my sister, she'd probably just camp outside my door, screaming until I came out or my neighbors called the cops. So I opened the door but stayed firmly in the doorway. No way was I letting her into my apartment to yell at me. "What do you want?" I asked. She pushed right past me because, apparently, personal boundaries aren't a thing in my family, never have been. "What the actual hell is wrong with you?" She practically screamed once she was inside. I shut the door so my neighbors wouldn't get a free show and crossed my arms. "What's wrong with me? That's pretty rich coming from you. Mom has been crying for 2 days straight. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Brother had to take out a loan to cover his car payment, and it's all because you decided to throw some tantrum." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. A tantrum? Is that what we're calling it when someone stops letting themselves get used? Used? She rolled her eyes. "There are parents. It's called taking care of your family." "Taking care of family goes both ways," I shot back. "Where was the family when you all went on vacation without me? Where was the family when Dad straight up told me I wasn't invited because I'd bring the energy down at Brother's birthday celebration? Where was the family when you used my money to fund this whole thing and didn't even have the decency to mention it to me?" Her face did this thing where I could tell she wanted to argue but knew I was right. "It wasn't like that," she mumbled. "Then what was it like? Please, enlighten me." She looked down at her shoes. "We just thought you wouldn't want to come." "Bullshit," I said. "Dad already told me the truth. You didn't want me there because this was all about making Brother feel special, and apparently I'm such a jealous hater that I would have ruined it. Is that about right?" She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. "You know what's funny?" I continued. "If any of you had just asked me to help fund a special birthday trip for Brother, I probably would have said yes. But instead you all went behind my back, used my money without asking, and deliberately excluded me. And now you have the nerve to act shocked that I'm done bankrolling all of you." "We need that money," she said quietly. "Mom and Dad can't make it without your help." "That sounds like a them problem," I said with a shrug. Maybe they should have thought about that before treating me like an ATM instead of a son. "So you're just going to let them struggle?" Her voice was getting louder again. "After everything they've done for you?" I moved closer and looked her directly in the eyes. "What exactly have they done for me lately, sis? Besides take and take and take?" She had no answer for that. "Big surprise if you're so concerned about them struggling," I said. "Why don't you support them? You have a job, you have money. Why is it only my responsibility?" She bit her lip and looked away. "I can't afford to." "Neither can I interrupted. "I've been living in this crappy apartment, driving a car that's falling apart, and skipping things I want to do for years so I could send them $3,000 every month. I'm done sacrificing my life for people who don't even want me around unless they need cash." "They do want you around," she said, but even she didn't sound convinced. "Yeah? Then why wasn't I invited on the trip? Why did Dad specifically say they didn't want me there again?" "No answer exactly," I said. "I'm not the son, I'm not the brother, I'm the wallet. And the wallet is closed now." She sighed. "They're going to keep coming after you, you know. This isn't going to just go away." I walked to the door and held it open. "Let them try. I'm not changing my mind." As she walked out, I felt this weird mix of emotions, like I was standing up for myself finally, but also losing my family in the process. But then I remembered they had already decided I wasn't really part of the family. I was just the cash machine. After she left, I decided to check the damage to my bank account from all these years of helping out. I pulled up my transaction history, going back several years, and started adding things up. Holy crap. In the past 5 years alone, I'd given them over $200,000. That's not even counting all the random emergencies, the extra bills, the loans that were never repaid. No wonder they were freaking out. I wasn't just giving them spending money, I was funding their entire lifestyle. And what did I have to show for all that generosity? A rundown apartment. A car with 150,000 miles on it. A savings account that would make financial advisors cry. And a family that didn't even want me around unless they needed cash. I felt like such an idiot for not seeing it sooner. But I knew they weren't going to just accept my decision to cut them off financially. They'd keep pushing, guilt-tripping, and trying every manipulation trick they knew to get me back in line. So I decided to do something I hadn't done in years, take some actual time for myself. I'd had this week of vacation time saved up at work that I'd been holding on to just in case there was a family emergency, because there was always some crisis that needed my attention or money. But this time, the emergency was my own mental health. I found this small cabin rental in the mountains about 3 hours from where I live. Nothing fancy, just a simple place with some hiking trails nearby and a hot tub on the deck. It looked peaceful and, most importantly, far away from my family drama. I booked it immediately. I didn't tell a single person where I was going. Not my family, obviously, not my friends, not even my closest coworker. I just requested the time off, packed my stuff, and got ready to disappear for a week. The day before I left, my phone was blowing up with more messages. From Mom, we need to talk about this situation. You can't just abandon your family. From Dad, your mother is worried sick about you. Call her. From Brother, thanks for getting my car repossessed, jackass. But the one that really got me was from my mom again. The bank called about the mortgage. They're threatening foreclosure by next week if we don't make a payment. We need $5,000 by Tuesday, or we lose the house. Please, we're desperate. I stared at that message for a solid minute. They were still trying to dump their financial emergencies on me without even asking, like nothing had changed. They really thought I'd just keep being their personal ATM after everything that had happened, as if cutting off their monthly allowance wasn't clear enough that the bank of me was officially closed. I didn't even bother responding. If they showed up at my empty apartment begging for money to save their precious house, that was on them, not me. They could figure out their own financial emergency for once. The next morning, I loaded up my car, turned my phone completely off, and hit the road. The drive to the mountains was exactly what I needed. Windows down, music up, not a single thought about my family's problems, just me on the open road. Jake called me once I'd settled in at the cabin. Just making sure you haven't changed your mind and driven back to rescue them, he joked. I'm proud of you, dude. This is exactly what you need. It was weirdly comforting knowing someone had my back. Someone who genuinely cared about me and not my bank account. We talked for a while, and he mentioned how different I sounded already. It's like you've been carrying these people on your back for years and finally stood up straight, he said. You know what we're doing when you get back? We're hitting that bar near your place and celebrating your Independence Day. I hadn't been out just to have fun in I couldn't even remember how long. Always too busy solving someone else's problem or too broke from handling their expenses. The thought of just hanging out like a normal 26-year-old guy was actually exciting. I spent the first day just existing. I sat on the deck drinking coffee, took a short hike on a nearby trail, and soaked in the hot tub while watching the sunset. Just me, finally taking care of myself for once. On the second day, I made the mistake of turning on my phone just to check if there were any important work emails. Bad idea. Within seconds, it was blowing up with notifications. I scrolled through a few of the texts. Mom, where are you? We've been knocking on your door for 20 minutes. Sister, we're standing outside your apartment with the mortgage paperwork. This isn't funny. Brother, Mom is freaking out because you're not answering. What the hell, man? Mom again, we really needed that money today. The bank official was disappointed. I hope you're happy with yourself. And the best one, from my dad, your mother is worried sick. If we don't hear from you by tomorrow, we're filing a missing persons report. A missing persons report? Because I didn't answer my door to hand over $5,000 I never agreed to give them? The level of entitlement was actually impressive. I turned my phone back off without responding to anyone. They weren't concerned about my well-being, they were mad that their emergency bailout money didn't materialize. The rest of the week was amazing. On my last night at the cabin, I sat on the deck with a cup of hot chocolate and did some serious thinking. I'd spent so many years putting everyone else first. I'd sacrificed my own dreams, my own comfort, my own future for people who didn't even think to include me in a family vacation. People who explicitly said they didn't want me there, even though my money was good enough to fund their good time. By the time I drove back home, I felt like a different person. Not angry anymore, just resolved. I knew what I needed to do, and I wasn't going to let guilt or manipulation change my mind. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I spotted my sister's car parked near my unit. She was sitting inside, clearly waiting for me. I almost laughed. They were taking shifts now, apparently. When she saw me, she jumped out of her car and stormed over. Where the hell have you been? We've been worried sick. I grabbed my bag from the trunk and headed toward my door. I was on vacation. You know, like the one you all took without me. Vacation? She looked genuinely confused, like the concept of me taking time for myself was completely foreign. You didn't tell anyone you were leaving. You didn't tell me about your vacation either, I pointed out. At least not until I found out by accident. That's different, she insisted, following me to my door. The bank was about to foreclose on the house. We needed that money by Tuesday. I stopped and turned to face her. No, you didn't. You've been saying the house is at risk for years. You just decided I would bail you out again. But you're always there with the money when we need it, she said, as if that was some kind of justification. Not anymore, I replied, unlocking my door. From now on, if you need something from me, childcare, money, whatever, you ask, and I get to say yes or no. That's how normal adult relationships work. She looked like I'd just explained quantum physics to her. But we're family, she said, as if that erased the need for basic respect. Yes, we are, I agreed. And family should treat each other with respect. I stepped inside my apartment and started to close the door. Mom and Dad are really struggling without your help, she said quickly. They might lose the house. I paused. Then I guess they'll have to downsize to something they can actually afford, like the rest of us do. That's not just their problem. I live there too, she snapped. Where am I supposed to go if they lose the house? I can't afford my own place on what I make. Maybe you should have thought about that before expecting me to fund everyone's lifestyle, I shot back. Not my problem anymore. Her face hardened. You know, before all this, I always thought you were the good one in the family, the reliable one. But now I see you're just selfish. I couldn't help but smile at that. If putting myself first for once after years of putting everyone else first makes me selfish, then yeah, I guess I am. And it feels pretty good. I closed the door on her shocked face and locked it. The old me would have felt guilty. The old me would have apologized and opened my wallet again. But that guy was gone, and I wasn't missing him at all. After my sister left, I barely had time to unpack before my phone started blowing up. My mom was the first to call, and man, she was livid. Like, screaming through the phone, livid. She kept going on about how they were worried sick and were about to file a police report because I wasn't answering calls or texts. How could you just disappear when we were about to lose the house? She demanded. The bank gave us until Tuesday to make the payment or start foreclosure proceedings. We had to scramble to borrow money from people we barely know. I reminded her that they didn't invite me to their vacation and didn't even want to answer my calls. She tried a different angle, suddenly concerned about my mental health, saying this wasn't like me and that I'd always been so giving and reliable. Classic manipulation, making me sound like I'm the one with the problem because I'm no longer letting myself be used. Then she tried a completely different angle, implying that they had discussed inviting me on the trip, but decided against it when I pressed her on this. She stumbled through some excuse about how my brother wanted it to be just immediate family. As if I somehow don't count as immediate family. That stung way more than I expected it to. I called her out on this BS and reminded her that my dad had already told me the truth. They didn't want me there because I would bring the energy down and might be jealous of my brother getting all the attention. She had no response to that. The conversation got even more ridiculous when she tried to claim they didn't use my money for the trip. I reminded her about the $20,000 that conveniently disappeared from our joint account right before their vacation. Her excuse? They were going to pay me back. With what money? The money I send them every month? Make it make sense. When she realized I wasn't falling for any of her usual tactics, she pulled out the big guns, my dad's health. Apparently, his blood pressure was through the roof because of all this stress I was causing, and if something happened to him, it would be my fault. I've fallen for this one so many times before, but not this time. I told her that Dad's health was his responsibility, not mine, and using it to manipulate me was a low blow, even for her. She ended the call by saying she couldn't believe how heartless I was being, and that I wasn't the son she raised. I agreed with her on that last part. The son she raised would have kept quiet and kept the money flowing. That guy's gone. After hanging up, I felt completely drained but strangely calm. For the first time ever, I'd stood my ground with my mom without caving to the guilt trips or manipulation. It felt like a major personal victory. But man, my mom works fast. Within an hour of our call, my phone was getting absolutely bombarded with messages from every branch of my extended family. My aunt was saying my mom was beside herself. and demanding to know how I could speak to her that way. My uncle was telling me that I didn't have to be stingy, and I needed to step up. Even my cousins were getting in on it, sending messages about how disappointed they were in my selfish behavior. It was like my mom had activated the family phone tree of guilt. The funny thing was, none of them knew the whole story. They had only heard her carefully edited version where she was the victim, and I was the ungrateful son who suddenly cut off his poor, struggling parents for no reason. I didn't respond to any of them. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds based on whatever sob story my mom had fed them. The next day, things escalated even further. My brother showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door like he was trying to break it down. I could hear him yelling through the door about how I'd ruined everything and his car had been repossessed because of me. I didn't answer. Let him yell. My neighbors might not appreciate the free show, but I wasn't in the mood for another confrontation. After about 10 minutes of door pounding and shouting, he finally gave up and left. Not before sliding a handwritten note under my door, though. The note was something else, full of guilt, accusations, and thinly veiled threats about how I'd regret turning my back on family. I tossed it in the trash without finishing it. 2 days later, I ran into my brother at the gas station. He tried to act tough, getting in my face about how I was destroying the family. I just looked him dead in the eyes and said, "The only thing I destroyed was your free ride. Maybe try working full-time like the rest of us, instead of expecting your big brother to bankroll your lifestyle." He started to say something, then just walked away. For the first time in our lives, he had nothing to say, no comeback, no guilt trip, nothing. That felt better than I expected. That evening, my dad tried a different approach. He sent a single text that just said, "We need to talk, no drama, no accusations." When I didn't respond, he followed up with, "I know we've made mistakes. Let's fix this." It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of wrongdoing I'd ever gotten from him. But it still wasn't an actual apology, just another attempt to get me back on the hook. By the end of the week, I'd gotten messages from literally every member of my extended family. Some people I barely even talked to, second cousins, my parents' old friends, even my mom's hairdresser, all telling me variations of family is everything, and you only get one set of parents and other cliches that completely ignore the years of financial exploitation. The most insulting message came from my sister, who had the nerve to send me photos of my parents' house with a note that said, "Hope you're happy when they're homeless next month." Using their potential homelessness to guilt-trip me. Through all of this, I stayed firm. I didn't respond to most messages, and when I did, I kept it simple. I'm no longer providing financial support to my family. This decision is final. No explanations, no justifications, just the facts. It was exhausting but also weirdly liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't scrambling to fix everyone else's problems. I wasn't emptying my bank account to bail out people who didn't even respect me enough to invite me on a family vacation. I was just living my life, paying my own bills, taking care of myself, and it feels so damn good. Final update. Hey guys, it's been 3 months since everything went down with my family. Thanks to everyone who commented with support. You guys seriously helped keep me sane. So quick update on where things stand now. As you know, the first month was pure hell. My family tried every guilt trip in existence. My mom kept showing up, crying about losing the house. My dad calling my workplace. My sister sending sad pics of my nieces and nephews. And my brother leaving threatening voicemails. I didn't cave. Around week 6, something changed. Their demands slowly turned into requests. My dad actually emailed, saying they may have taken advantage of my generosity. Not quite an apology, but progress, I guess. My mom started asking how I was doing instead of immediately launching into what they needed. Meanwhile, my life improved dramatically. I moved to a nicer apartment, got a reliable car, and started saving for retirement. I finally pulled the trigger on joining that gym I always wanted to try and started getting back in shape. My boss noticed the change in my attitude at work and put me up for a promotion. Turns out, when you're not constantly stressed about your family's emergencies, you actually perform better. Got a 15% raise last month, and it feels damn good knowing every cent is mine. The biggest shock? My family actually figured out how to survive without my money, and that house they were supposedly about to lose? Turns out they worked out a payment plan with the bank once they realized I wasn't going to be their financial safety net anymore. Funny how these emergencies have solutions when I'm not available to solve them. My sister moved into her own apartment with 2 roommates and picked up weekend work. 2 weeks ago, my mom called with what might be the first genuine apology she's ever given me. She admitted they took advantage and acknowledged that excluding me from the vacation while using my money was wrong. We've had a few actual conversations since then, weird but kind of nice. It's almost like she's finally seeing me as a person and not just a walking wallet. My dad's mostly keeping his distance. Probably can't handle seeing me without being able to ask for cash. My brother barely speaks to me, except to drop subtle hints about struggling with his car payments. My sister still seems resentful, but at least now she's working for her own money to pay her tuition instead of expecting mine. As for me, I'm doing better than I have in years. My apartment feels like a home. I've started dating again and am planning my Japan trip for next spring. I've even started seeing a therapist to work through the guilt I still sometimes feel for taking care of myself instead of everyone else. Jake was the first person I called when I made my final decision to cut them off for good. Good, he said, not even sounding surprised. Now go live your damn life. You've spent way too long living everyone else's. He's right, and for once, I'm actually listening. So that's where things stand. I'm not sending money anymore. My family is adjusting. Some relationships are healing, some probably never will. And I'm finally living my own life instead of funding everyone else's. Looking back at my original post, I can't believe I ever wondered if I was the asshole. Thanks for helping me see that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Edit. For those asking if I'll ever help them financially again. Maybe for a genuine emergency. But it would be a one-time thing with clear conditions, not an open-ended commitment. For now, the bank of me remains firmly closed. Edit 2. Lots of you messaging me, asking how I finally got the courage to do it. Honestly, it wasn't courage as much as self-respect. I finally realized I deserved better than being everyone's ATM. If you're in a similar situation, just ask yourself, would these people still be in your life if you stopped giving them money? If the answer is no, then you know what you need to do.